due process to go through. In fact, the only thing that is keeping El-Rufai out now is because he's a politician and he's a politically exposed person. That's the only thing, and that it plays a big role in the opposition. And so the idea that you don't want to fall into the narrative of suppressing or which hunting the opposition just when elections are around the corner. So it's really like holding the country hostage at ransom.
Shouldn't the law supersede?
It should.
The narrative of witch hunting.
Absolutely, it should. But then, I mean, politicians will always be very careful about narratives. So that's the point that I'm making, because that's why I made this that I said that, look, if this was an ordinary person that has done this, the person would be in detention right now. We would probably have been even brought to court for the first appearance in court in front of it. But people of this level who abuse their leverage, who abuse their exposure, who abuse their authority, are the ones who are actually undermining the state, the institutions of the state. And that's why I've said else.
There's a problem of hacking, the security architecture, the phone or lines. What exactly separates Nigeria from surveillance state run by private interest? If a politician of high repute, such as these two examples, can actually penetrate intelligence channels or state security channels, such as this, and someone like El-rufai, what he has just done, shouldn't he be prosecuted really by our laws?
Let me respond to the last question first. Let's be very clear about this. If an ordinary person, goes on TV, just say an ordinary person or just an activist, who is not a politician, goes on national TV to say that they act the line of the commissioner of police, not the NSA, of the commissioner of police, and that they heard him, he was doing this, and that they have proof. Where do you think that person will be right now? The person would have been picked up. There will be issues around investigations, prosecution around it now, and it would have been legitimate to go through. It would have been due process to go through. The only thing that is keeping El-Rufai out now is because he's a politician and he's a politically exposed person. That's the only thing, and that it plays a big role in the opposition. And so the idea that you don't want to fall into the narrative of suppressing or which hunting the opposition just when elections are around the corner. So it's really like holding the country hostage at ransom.
Shouldn't the law supersede?
It should.
The narrative of witch hunting.
Absolutely, it should. But then, politicians will always be very careful about narratives. So that's the point that I'm making, because that's why I made this that I said that, look, if this was an ordinary person that has done this, the person would be in detention right now. We would probably have been even brought to court for the first appearance in court in front of it. But people of this level who abuse their leverage, who abuse their exposure, who abuse their authority, are the ones who are actually undermining the state, the institutions of the state. And that's why I've said elsewhere, particularly when we talk in civil society and even with the media, when we talk about Nigeria's election and the rest of that. And I said, look, the biggest risk to Nigeria's elections is not the Electoral Act, it's not the electoral law, it's not the Constitution, it's not the electoral management body. The biggest risk to Nigeria's democracy is the Nigerian politician. Because if we get the Nigerian politician right, then nobody will be deliberately undermining. Politicians in Nigeria actually vote resources, deliberately to undermine political processes. So when people do this, you can see that they are actually the danger. It's not the process itself that is a danger and a threat. It's these people who are actually the danger and who are the threat. And until Nigerians realize this and begin to hold our politicians accountable, begin to separate between the politician and the institution, so that we safeguard our institutions and deal with the individuals and the politicians, we are going to continue to be in problem as we are today. Should anybody who admits to this kind of thing, should that person not be prosecuted? Of course, the person should be prosecuted. The only reason why this person is not being prosecuted today is the reasons that I've given you. And again, let us also be clear about one thing. Now, the reason why people like this also do what they are doing, and I think we've had this conversation before, but maybe we can throw a bit more light on it, is that one of the reasons why the Nigerian state, why governance is dysfunctional in Nigeria, appears to be very dysfunctional in spite of good intents of some individuals, and so why sometimes it seems like no matter what you do, nothing is working and nothing is changing. It goes back to these politically exposed persons. We have a ruling political class in Nigeria that, one, does not agree amongst itself, so it does not have a minimum consensus. So there's no national consensus that they are all committed to and loyal to. They are not loyal to Nigeria, they are loyal to themselves, and they are different segments. So Nigeria, and so when you have a majority of political actors this way, it's not as if there are no nationalist Nigerians among them, but that we have the majority, we have the playing ground, which is like this. Now, what they also do is that every political actor, okay, give somebody, even if it is a politically appointed position, not even that you have won. Every politically exposed person who is a political office holder, you know what they try to do? They try to convert that aspect of the state that they control. They try to convert it into an instrument for their personal service, not the service of Nigerians. And so you have a state that is therefore that has been, if the Nigerian state was just captured by the ruling class, a ruling class that has a national consensus, it would have even been better. But you have the Nigerian state that has been captured by different segments of the Nigerian ruling class, and so each segment controls different. Each faction of the ruling class controls different segment of the state, and so the state cannot act as a state. So you look at security, you look at this. If people are doing this, by what stretch of the imagination can the state and security actually act, in a uniform manner?
With this scary picture, how then can we have a conversation around democracy and rule of law when certain individuals admit to weaponizing state machinery?
For me, the biggest problem with abuse of office is the audacity and the impunity. But impunity goes from where? Impunity goes from lack of response. If people can do things and get away with it, then of course you are laying the foundation for impunity, you are laying the foundation for abuse. But if every action, okay, has a consequence. So if it's a positive action, that's a positive consequence. If it's a negative action, that's a negative. If every action, every choice that we make, if it has consequences, and if some people are not excluded from those consequences, then we'll be able to get it right. And it seems to me like the way the Nigerian state has not been paralyzed, it takes all of us as Nigerians and citizens to start becoming more institution focused than individual focused, and to start protecting Nigeria rather than protecting whichever politician we think we are loyal to. If an institution has been compromised, can we deal with the compromise of that institution? Without, irrespective of the sentiments that we may have. And so that for me is the biggest thing. But this also requires leadership. So citizens are not just going to wake up and do it. It also requires, leadership for that to happen. Where is that leadership going to come from? Some people have to really take the bulls by the horn.
At the core of events like this, controversies such as this, is money. The conversation about money springs up again. Does this episode, just like the server conversation, the last election, last two elections, does this episode reinforce the belief that wealth in Nigeria doesn't just buy comfort, that it politicize institutions?
I think it's the other way around. I think politicians, the Nigeria's ruling elite, are interested in taking over institutions because it enables them to accumulate and protect wealth, ill-gotten wealth. So the institutions, that's why they weaponize and instrumentalize the institutions for their own personal gain, because that's how they make ends meet. That's how they make their wealth. That's how and protect you. So if you acquire wealth illegally, okay, then you also need to be able to protect it. So you need the institution not only to acquire the wealth illegally, you also need the institution in order to be able to protect that illegality, which is why you find the politically exposed in Nigeria, they are never outside the corridors of power. Once they are outside the corridors of power, you can actually see a visible decline in their status, in their wealth, because that's the only thing that they do, you know. So, and I guess for me that part of what I think this is a challenge for two groups or three groups really of citizens. I think that active citizens in civil society, in the media, need to band together and become more politically active. I think that business people, particularly those who, of course, I mean, they may have benefited from patronage from politics, but are actually business people and investors people. I think it's high time they also become very interested in politics, so that they can sanitize politics, so that even their own wealth that they are actually making in more legitimate ways can actually be safeguarded. Because otherwise, these people who are making illegal wealth would simply crash everything for them. And then the third level of people that I think also needs to be able to do this after citizens and after the business people. I think that it is also high time that organized workers should become, workers should become conscious of their role as citizens, of the fact that everything that pertains to their working conditions is actually determined in the political arena, the governance, and so to become politically conscious in their own interest. Because right now, it's not as if workers are not politically active, but they are active in the interest of other people, not in their own interest. Because if they are organized politically, be organized in their own interest, then even when they are supporting people, they will be bargaining. They would have a platform. So when I say bargaining, they are not bargaining for position. Oh, you give me this thing. They are bargaining in terms of policies. They are bargaining in terms of what we want, direct impact we want on our lives if we give you our support. We need to get to that point, and for me, that's actually the way to save Nigeria's democracy right now.